How can I support him through recovery? So your partner is a recovering corn addict. There's maybe been infidelity in the relationship and you are trying to make the relationship work. He says he's willing to change. And I said, if he continues, we can't be together. I feel as though he is being genuine. I do think that a lot of these men are trying to be genuine, but I also think that there's a lot of denial involved in this addiction. In fact, I know. And so when they're trying to make things work, a lot of times they just want to go back to the way things were. They want the relationship to go back to happy. Everything was great. I was able to keep this separate. I can go back to using the same tools I had before in making this relationship work. And unfortunately, that is not true. Old marriages died, new one has to rebuild. You have to learn all different communication styles, all different coping mechanisms, all different ways of communicating, all different types of honesty and vulnerability in the relationship. And vulnerability is really the key in this, ladies, where they're not going to learn vulnerability overnight. A lot of you are like, oh my gosh, I'm just begging him for vulnerability, right? In order for him to learn how to be vulnerable, you have to learn how to be a safe place. So if you really want to support him, learn how to be a safe place. I can teach you how to do that. You can work with a different therapist on it, but learn how to be a safe place for your husband's heart. I'm going to read this quote by Brene Brown. She says, show me a woman who can hold space for a man in real fear and vulnerability, and I'll show you a woman who's learned to embrace her own vulnerability and who doesn't derive her power or status from that man. Show me a man who can sit with a woman in real fear and vulnerability and just hear her struggle without trying to fix it or give advice, and I'll show you a man who's comfortable with his own vulnerability and doesn't derive his power from being Oz, the all-knowing and all-powerful. So, a lot of the work that has to be done in the relationship is not just fixing the corn addiction. The corn addiction is basically the surface of the wound. It's the nasty pus wound that's come to the surface, but that's not what caused the wound. What caused the wound was all the broken things that you brought to the marriage, the communication styles, the coping mechanisms, all those toxic traits that came into the relationship that buried shame, that demanded perfection, that didn't know how to communicate honestly, couldn't communicate needs, had avoidant or anxious styles of handling relationships, so many more things that could be, right? And so that is where the real work begins. So if you really want to support your partner, do the work on yourself as well. Don't just sit on the sidelines and go, this was all your fault, fix it. Am I saying that infidelity is your fault? Absolutely not. Am I saying his corn addiction is your fault? Absolutely not. But in order for this to get better, there are things that have to change in the relationship, and there's things that you can learn and do that will make that easier for him and create a safe place for him. Ultimately, though, it's learning how to communicate and being a safe place for each other's hearts.